Welcome to the Ignited Minds podcast. We're thrilled to present another episode of insights and discussions. Our special guest today is Mr. Benson. Could you please share a little bit about your background of farming experience and maybe some type of crops that you're currently cultivating?
Sure. So I am a fourth generation California farmer. My great grandfather moved to Imperial County in like 1921, I think, or 22. And my grandfather actually returned to Imperial County in, I want to say 1928, after he worked outside of the county to move to visit his parents and then start farming. So my dad farmed for 50 years, and my brother and I have continued the family farming. Um, I actually grew up in town, but all of my friends were either involved in agriculture or worked in industries that were close to it or serviced them, right? So I think I think I had one friend that had nothing to do with agriculture, and his dad was a dentist. That was it. Everybody else grew up working on a farm. So when I was 8 years old, my father took me out to do basic farm work with other kids, children of other employees. Learned how to drive a tractor when I was 12. I
Mm.
did that almost every summer. When I turned 18, literally on my birthday, my dad had me do two things. He took me to the post office and I registered for the draft, which was kind of frightening. And he took me to the bank and I signed a $300,000 farm loan so that I could start farming cotton with him. So I farmed cotton all the way through college.
Mm.
So even though I went to school on the East Coast, to Colgate, he would plant the cotton and he would harvest the cotton, and I did all the work all summer and made pretty good money. And that helped me buy a car. Helped me, he was teaching me discipline. Of course, I had to become a licensed pesticide applicator so that I could put on my pesticides to keep the bugs out of the cotton. So I grew up growing cotton, and dad grew a bunch of other stuff, but I really only ever worked on the farm in the summer. So I knew all of our summer crops. I didn't really spend that much time doing produce, which is what we do all winter. So the Imperial Valley is an unusual place in that we have very busy summers as we harvest our forage crops, and we have very busy winters as we harvest our vegetable crops. And the time in the fall and spring are spent transitioning between the two. So a
Yes.
lot of tractor work. Um, my brother actually runs our 5,000 acre family farm, and I run a farm with a couple hundred acres of olives. So I am only farming olives right now. And that's been the case for the last 10 years. Although I did have some quinoa in there as well for fun. Thought I'd try that.
It's really
Uh,
interesting.
yeah. And so when one of my concerns with olives was to understand their water use, understand their how to get them to set fruit, how to get the fruit to come off the tree for harvest, and then what to do with the fruit once it comes off the tree. So either to mill the olives into oil, or to sell the whole olive to a table olive processor, or to process it myself and to cure it so that it's edible. Because olives themselves on the tree are too bitter to eat. So you have to do something to process them. Generally, what we do is we put them in a barrel full of salt water, and we just literally turn it into salt water pretty close to the salinity of the ocean, and then cure them in that water for a couple months, and they're really quite delicious afterwards.
So you mentioned you had some problem with water conservation and overall farm management. So could you maybe go into more specifics about how you've been able to
Sure.
kind of conserve water and power?
Yeah. So um, the Imperial Valley is in a unique situation because we actually have adequate water for our needs, given our priority water rights. We are farming the Colorado River Delta. So as you may know, most of the most valuable farmland in the world is river delta, whether it's the Nile River, the Yangtze Delta in China, the Rhone and Rhine deltas in Europe, where almost all, because the water sluices off the best soils from the mountains and it leaves it in the delta. And that's what happened here. As my father liked to joke, we're right on top of the San Andreas Fault as well. So the San Andreas Fault broke Baja California off from the mainland. That's what created the Gulf of California and in Baja, and it is really deep, obviously. So why isn't it all the way up to Palm Springs, where Palm Springs is above sea level and Coachella and Indio are right below sea level, and then it gets deeper as you head into the Imperial Valley, and then you go back to the Mexican border and you're at sea level again. And the reason is we are where the Grand Canyon went.
Oh,
So the Colorado River carved the Grand Canyon and took it someplace. Well, it dropped it here. So we have millennia of soil, like 5,000 plus feet of topsoil. It's one of the best farming regions in the world. And in fact, we've been told, and this is in multiple crops, that our spring wheat is the highest quality, makes the highest quality pasta in the world. Our winter, spring, summer, and fall alfalfa hay is the best hay in the world, many times the highest protein levels and highest yields per acre by far. And the alfalfa is a rotational crop that helps flush out a lot of the pathogens that build up when you grow nothing but vegetables. So we figured out that by rotating our crops around vegetables, we can continue growing vegetables. So 450, 500,000 acres farmed in this area, and there's about 200,000 in vegetables every winter, but it's not always the same 200,000. So it's rotating around pretty regularly. And the water use is that the more water you conserve, the more crops you can grow, because we have a finite amount of water per acre available to us from a water district. In addition to which, there are significant financial incentives to save water, because if the district is able to save water on a bulk basis, it can sell it to the cities.
mhm.
Has a far, I mean, we do not pay market cost for our water. We pay delivery cost for our water.
Mhm.
You understand the difference?
Yeah.
So we have infrastructure that has been built that the farmers paid for, right? We paid for the Imperial Irrigation Dam on the Colorado River. We paid for the All-American Canal. The government built it, but they built it and made us pay for it. I remember when we paid the bonds off in the 1980s when I was a kid. Everyone was partying, right? We no more debt. Well, they immediately took that cash and reinvested it in the infrastructure. So there was no real benefit to paying off the debt. It was just a good thing to not have bonds out anymore. The irrigation district charges us $20 per acre foot because that's what they have figured out the cost to deliver the water is. That's not the economic value of the water. That's the cost to deliver the water. So the economic value of the water is over $1,000 an acre foot. But from a farming perspective, we would be out of business if we were paying that much money.
Mhm.
Our maximum profit is maybe $1,000 an acre on some of these things we farm. So that's great, but most of the things we make a couple $100 an acre. So we would very quickly be out of business if we had to pay San Diego water prices in Imperial County. San Diego has to pay that price because they're delivering water over mountains with pumps, and they have to pump that water over a 4,000 foot hump to get it into their system to then deliver it to San Diego. We just have it flow through our canals via gravity, because from the dam to the Mexican border where Calexico and Mexicali are
Yeah.
is a drop of about 200 feet. And so we actually have a drop in the All-American Canal owned by the district that generates electricity, because each of those drops, where they drop it like 20 feet, we have a hydroelectric plant
Mm.
running, creating electricity for the electric community, the electric consumers as well. And then it gets to sea level, which is about the border, and then it distributes through a branch of like arteries, which are three major arteries: the West Canal, the East Canal, and the Central Canal. And it's called West Side Main, the High Line, and the Central Main. Not very inventive names, but gets the point across. And then each of the canals has feeders, very much like veins and capillaries, delivering water to every single field is connected to that network. So I order water and I tell the irrigation district what gate they're delivering it to. And they keep track of my water use over the year. If I use less water because I save water, I can sell that water back to the district and get paid for it. So I'm highly incentivized. I should value every acre foot very highly, because the district is providing a path to getting paid to save water. So it's if you want to call it, it's mercenary economics, right? I'm getting paid to do something. Okay. But it's an environmental good. I would also argue that I'm using my water for beneficial use that's pretty good for the world too, because I'm growing 45,000 trees that are sucking carbon out of the air. My olive trees are the ultimate carbon sink, right? They're just all that CO2 is getting stored and then producing olive oil, and then you get to eat it. I make food. Someone's got to make food, because we
Yeah.
all need to eat.